Have you ever locked your door, walked away, made it halfway down the street, and then suddenly your brain goes, "Are we sure?" Not pretty sure, not "I remember doing it," but sure. So now you stop. You look back at your house. You try to replay the last 30 seconds like security camera footage. Did I turn the key? Did I hear the click? Did I actually close it properly? Or did I just imagine closing it? And the worst part is you probably did lock it. You know you probably locked it. But probably is apparently not good enough for the tiny courtroom in your head. So you walk back. You check the door. It's locked. Obviously. You leave again. And then, somehow, 2 minutes later, your brain goes, "But did we check it correctly?" And now you're not even checking the door anymore. You're checking your checking, which feels insane but also weirdly normal. Because most people have some version of this. Maybe it's the door. Maybe it's the oven. Maybe it's your straightener. Maybe it's your alarm. Maybe it's rereading a message 3 times before sending it, just to make sure you didn't accidentally say something completely unhinged. Maybe it's checking your pocket for your phone, while your phone is literally in your hand. And it's funny because these moments can feel a little OCD-like from the outside, but for a lot of people, it's not actually OCD. It's more like your brain briefly refusing to trust itself. And that's the strange part. You did the thing. You were there. You physically performed the action. But your brain didn't file it away properly. It didn't stamp it with completed, confirmed, or safe. So later when you ask yourself, "Did I lock the door?" your brain doesn't pull up a clear memory. It pulls up a blurry screenshot. And when the memory is blurry, doubt walks in. The reason this happens is often because we do these little everyday tasks on autopilot. Locking a door is not exactly a dramatic life event. You don't usually pause and think, "I am now performing the sacred ritual of securing the entrance." You just do it. You're thinking about work. You're thinking about whether you replied to that message. You're thinking about what you're going to eat later. You're thinking about that awkward thing you said in 2018. Meanwhile, your hand locks the door. Your body did it, but your attention was somewhere else. So later when you try to remember it, the memory feels weak. Not because it didn't happen, but because you weren't fully present when it happened. And the brain does not like weak evidence when the stakes feel high. A door being unlocked could mean someone gets in. An oven left on could mean danger. A message sent wrong could mean embarrassment. So even if the chance of something going wrong is tiny, the consequence feels big enough that your brain goes, "Let's just check." And checking works. That's the trap. You check the door, and immediately you feel relief. The anxiety drops. Your brain goes, "Great, checking solved the problem." So the next time doubt appears, your brain suggests the same solution. Check again, and maybe again. Not because you're irrational, but because your brain learned that checking gives relief. The problem is that relief can become addictive in a tiny, annoying way. Because the more you check, the less you practice trusting your memory. It's like asking someone else for the answer every time instead of letting yourself sit with uncertainty. Eventually, your brain gets used to needing proof. Not just memory, not just common sense. Proof. And then even proof starts to feel temporary. Because the doubt isn't really about the door anymore. It's about the uncomfortable feeling of not being 100% certain. And humans are very bad at accepting uncertainty. We want the feeling of absolute confirmation. But most of life doesn't give us that. You can remember locking the door, but you can't feel the lock from 5 streets away. You can send a message, but you can't control exactly how the other person reads it. You can set an alarm, but there's still that tiny thought. What if I set it for PM instead of AM? Which, by the way, is one of the most spiritually devastating mistakes a person can make. So we check. Not because we want to waste time, but because we're trying to calm a tiny alarm inside us. The strange thing is, the more normal the task is, the easier it is to doubt. You usually remember unusual things clearly. If you locked your door while a marching band walked past your house, you'd probably remember it. But if it was just a normal Tuesday, your brain might not bother saving the memory in high definition. That's why people come up with little tricks. They say the action out loud. Okay, the door's locked. Or they take a photo of the oven being off. Or they create a weird mental image, like imagining a tiny security guard standing by the door giving a thumbs up. It sounds silly, but it works because it forces your brain to pay attention. It turns an automatic action into a memorable moment. But there's also a balance. Because sometimes the healthiest thing is not to create a more elaborate checking ritual. Sometimes it's to say, "I checked once, that is enough." And then tolerate the little bit of doubt that remains. Not because the doubt feels good. It doesn't. It feels like your brain has left a tab open. But over time, that's how you teach your brain that uncertainty is not an emergency. You don't need to solve every anxious thought. You don't need to answer every what if. Sometimes the brain asks a question, and the best response is, not today. Because the real goal isn't to become a person who never doubts anything. That's impossible. The goal is to become someone who doesn't have to obey every doubt. So the next time you lock the door, maybe pause for 1 second. Actually notice it. Feel the key turn. Hear the click. Say to yourself, done. Then walk away. And when your brain asks, are you sure? You can answer, sure enough. And maybe that's the best we get. Not perfect certainty. Just enough certainty to keep walking. Because most of the time, the door is locked, the oven is off, the alarm is set. And your brain is just being a very dramatic little security system, trying its best to protect you from a problem that probably doesn't exist.